Hi, everyone, and welcome to Americans for Limited Government News. We've been doing some streaming lives. This one we're doing on Facebook and YouTube together. I'm Catherine Mortensen and David Potter. I'm Vice President of Communications. And David, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm the communications coordinator here, do the social media and just help get everything out, our message.
So what have we been seeing this week? As we sort of close out the summer, it seems this has been a very cruel summer for the Democrats.
Absolutely.
And the question is can it get any crueler? And what is the answer to that?
It looks like it can. I mean, Biden is doing horrible in the polls. 61% say that the country's heading in the wrong direction. The liberal agenda seems to be in trouble. There's been teachers that have been fired. We're going to get into quite a few different stories, but the short answer is that it can get worse and things are looking bad. Liberals, the Democrats are in trouble right now.
So let's start with California, the craziest story today. And every few years, these sort of headlines seem to pop up, and generally they are from California, where we are paying criminals not to commit crimes. The latest one comes from San Francisco. What are they doing now?
So at this point, they're paying people to not commit crimes. And the premise is ridiculous because you have to be a high-risk individual to get paid. And the way you do that is to commit a crime. That's how they're looking, essentially, to see who gets to pay this money. So if you go commit a crime and you get yourself in this pool of money, it's almost like it's a backwards incentivization to get people to not commit crime, but they're going to be doing it to get money. And it's just crazy.
So the Democrat mayor of San Francisco has put forward a plan. They're going to pay people $300 a month, essentially not to shoot each other.
Yeah.
And from the article we read in the Daily Mail, it sounds like the money's going to come from a combination of some local funds from taxpayers. They're also getting some money from private donations, and they may also get some federal funds. So good place to live if you're a criminal. You can get paid not to commit crimes in San Francisco right now.
And ever since it became a misdemeanor for shoplifting under $1,000, shoplifting you can see all types of videos. You just go to YouTube or you just search a story. There's just tons of theft because people are not getting in trouble. They're getting a slap on the wrist, and it's incentivized almost. It's certainly allowed to an extent that it shows that the Democrats are not doing well at all at managing local government.
And in addition, these programs there in San Francisco are rolling out just as California is pushing to become the first state to pay people who are addicted to drugs if they promise to get sober. So clearly, I mean, our hearts go out to people who are dealing with addiction. But the question is that the right policy response? Is to pay people to commit to being sober?
I think the money is not going to be the thing that changes the person's heart. It's likely going to be people that are going to make this commitment, and they're going to use the money they get to stay sober to go buy more drugs. I'm not sure at this point how they're going to enforce this, but it's not good. It sounds nice in theory, like a lot of the Democrat policies, but on the ground, when it's actually enforced, it's not going to work well.
Right. They're always using taxpayer dollars to fund these programs. And the other thing in San Francisco, isn't that the city of brotherly love? No, that's Philadelphia. Well, San Francisco, known as sort of like the hippie place back in the 60s where they all love each other. Yeah. Gun crimes in that city have jumped 100% in the first half of 2021. So we have 119 reported victims of gun crimes just in the first half of this year. So that is the same amount that they had in the entire year of 2020. So not going so well for the people of San Francisco. I don't think that their public policies are working as intended.
They're not. And there was a news broadcaster discussing the anti-crime measures they're taking on a local level, and he was robbed at gunpoint on air on television as he was discussing anti-crime measures. So it's not a good look for California and the Democrats. It's not going well.
And then you also found some stories this morning about what's happening in the schools there. We uncovered a teacher, well, not we, Project Veritas uncovered a teacher who was a flat out Antifa communist who was quoted very openly. They caught him on camera in the classroom saying it was his duty to indoctrinate the students. And he said, I have 188 days to indoctrinate them. And he had an Antifa flag up in the room and was very clear and very specific that he was trying to convert these kids into being radicals like he was. And what's the latest on that?
Yeah, it appears that he has been fired. Sadly, I think he only got fired because he got caught. But he had a picture of Mao in his classroom. He had a picture of Kim Jong-un. You would get bonus experience points or bonus points for your grade if you went to an Antifa event that opposed any right-wing event. So he was actually building into the grading system in his classroom to go and be disruptive. And he asserted on hidden camera, he met with this undercover journalist. It looked like at a cafe, and I don't think he had any idea he was being recorded. But he said, I don't know why we shouldn't take up arms against the government. We have examples of that. But then he backtracks and says, well, a lot of people were killed during the Cultural Revolution, and he's not even consistent in his own policies. But people are waking up. They're seeing this happen. In addition to this guy, there's been two other super woke teachers being fired. One was pledge allegiance to the queers, the gay flag in the classroom, pledging to that. And a third was a woman was teaching about sex to preschoolers. And
whoa,
yeah, she's been fired too. She was teaching consent and rape, and I think she's maybe talking about sex toys.
Oh my gosh!
So she got fired as well. But people are not taking this; they're not accepting it.
Well, I'm happy to hear that the people in California are rejecting these kind of radicals in the classrooms. And now we're also hearing that some of these school board members that are what I call like mask Nazis, or was this in Nevada?
This was
Nevada. That's right. So just next door in Nevada, they have, and I'm sure where you live, you have people on your school board who are these masked Nazis, requiring little, 5 and 6-year-old children to be masked up for 8 hours a day. Some of these school board members in Nevada have faced so much public backlash and opposition that some of them are resigning. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think it's totally inappropriate to require these little children to sit at a desk all day with a mask on.
Yeah, this is when their brains are developing. They're learning social skills. They're learning cues from facial expressions. They're learning the basics of human interaction, and that's being stunted. And it's not a good thing. But yeah, this guy had received so much pressure that he resigned. He said it was affecting his mental health, which is, I feel bad for the guy. But I also wonder, how do these people who are so far off from their constituents get elected? I mean, is it this one wedge issue that this guy's constituents were unaware of, that he's so against what they want? But people are showing up across the country to these school board meetings, never had an ounce of public speaking training, and they're just going off, and it is working, and the Democrats are losing.
And I think it's important to say, to emphasize what you just said, David, the grassroots activism is working.
Yeah.
We are seeing across the country that people are fighting back against these mandates. Here at Americans for Limited Government, we've had a very successful digital grassroots campaign where we are providing people with an outlet online where you can simply send a quick email to every one of your representatives at your local, at your state, at your federal level, telling them that you reject any type of government mandates for the COVID vaccine or masks. Now, we are not going to address the efficacy of the vaccine or masks. That's not what our organization does. But what we do is we reject big government mandates. We're all about limited government. So if you agree with us that these government mandates are wrong and that you can fight back and have your voice heard, go check us out at getliberty.org. We have, just with one click, you can go to the no vaccine COVID mandates. You can send a very quick direct email to your representatives and have your voice heard. So far, we've had close to about 800,000 emails sent across the country to people's elected representatives. And again, this is at the state, at the local and federal level, all levels of government. And in fact, we have a new take action that we just put out this week in support of Senator Ted Cruz's bill. He has legislation in the US Senate, so obviously here in Washington, that would say no vaccine mandates. And we are supporting that legislation.
Yeah, we believe it's a personal choice and that every American should have the ability to choose what they wear when they go to public, whether regarding a mask, if they want to wear a mask or not. And if you feel comfortable in one, that's great, but people should have the freedom to choose, and they shouldn't be harassed in public. They shouldn't be looked upon as a different group or someone less than because they choose differently than the crowd.
And I think this relates to what you said earlier, David, about why this summer has been so bad for Democrats. This is just a bad look for them. Americans don't love big government.
Right.
I mean, we are all about freedom in this country, individual liberties, and that's what we do at Americans for Limited Government. So the summer has not been good for Democrats. And then clearly, an absolute disaster on so many levels and a tragedy of epic proportions is Joe Biden's withdrawal of our forces from Afghanistan. Yes. And we have fallen Marines and other people from other members of the U.S. Armed Forces who have died over there. And this one thing alone is what some people think may define his presidency or perhaps even end it. There is growing talk, especially among GOP in Washington, of bringing up impeachment charges against this president. This has just been a disaster that our president here at Americans for Limited Government, Rick Manning, doesn't think that Joe Biden will ever recover politically from what has happened in Afghanistan.
Yeah, independents, there's a 31% approval rate amongst independents in one recent poll of Joe Biden, and 2022 is probably not going to look good at all for Democrats. Even the media, even CNN called it a failure. If CNN is breaking step with the president, you know it's bad when the leftist media is against the president. It's crazy. It's upsetting and it's exhausting to see something go so bad in the loss of life.
I think all Americans are heartbroken to see what has gone down in Afghanistan. And clearly we haven't seen the end of it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stories coming out about the tragedy there. But one other impact from the Afghanistan debacle of Joe Biden is it has caused his popularity ratings to plummet to an all-time low. And if you know anything about Washington and the way politicians in this city work, they run from bad ratings. And some of these moderate Democrats in Washington, D.C. are starting to move away from Joe Biden. The first one here that I will talk about is Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia. He had an op-ed yesterday afternoon in the Wall Street Journal in which he said, let's take a legislative pause on this $3.5 trillion budget reconciliation bill. And this, of course, is the second of these massive Democrat spending bills. And this is the one they were hoping to pass by the end of September on a strictly partisan basis. And Joe Biden, or rather, Senator Manchin is put it out there in the Wall Street Journal that I'm not so sure about this. Let's take a pause. And he cited concerns about inflation and already excess government debt.
And they need his vote. If they don't have his vote, it's unlikely that it will pass. So people in his own party are distancing themselves, and it's just not looking good.
No. And we have a way for you to get involved to try to defeat that $3.5 trillion spending bill. Again, another one of our action items is where you can send a quick email to your lawmakers in Washington, and the House and the Senate, telling them we do not need this excessive spending bill. And you can go to our website again at getliberty.org, send your lawmakers a quick email. And really, if we can just get 2 or 3 of these moderate Democrats like Joe Manchin.
Right.
Another one would be John Tester, a Democrat of Montana. There's Catherine Cortez Mastro of Nevada. There's Mark Kelly, a Democrat from Arizona. Those are senators who may be persuaded, right? If they hear from their constituents, we might be able to bring them along and get them off this bad spending bill. So I think that there is a possibility that, this spending bill, the Biden domestic agenda,
Yes.
could be derailed because of
Yes.
his disaster in Afghanistan.
Yes, and I would encourage everybody to remember that putting pressure on your elected officials or encouraging them in a certain way is effective. This system does work. There's a lot of conservatives that are disillusioned after the previous election, but it's important to know that there is still hope in America, and there is the possibility for us to create change through grassroots efforts. So these letters do work. There's nothing more than a politician fears than being kicked out of office. So send this stuff to your friends. If you haven't taken an opportunity to send a letter, please do that by using our link on limitgov.org, because if enough people speak up, politicians will listen. But don't listen to the overwhelming message from the leftist mainstream legacy media, because they're going to paint this picture to make you think that it's hopeless, that you can't do anything. But you got to tune that out. You've got to get alternate sources of media in the mix and take the bigger picture into consideration. But more importantly, don't believe them when they come out with some polls that might not be exactly accurate, or certain statements. They want you to give up. They want you to sit at home and sulk while their people shows up. That's not how we win this. Grassroots activism does work. Do not lose hope in that respect.
And David, that's an excellent point. And to add to what you just said, is they're hoping that conservatives like us will sort of stay home and disengaged and be so withdrawn and disappointed. But you know what they've got that they're really happy about right now? And I'm not going to speak in detail about the Texas abortion law, but I can tell you that is a story politically the Democrats love. It will get them off of Afghanistan, and it will energize their base. So I predict we're going to be seeing a lot of stories in the mainstream media in coming weeks about that bill, and they're going to be headlines like Supreme Court about to overturn Roe v. Wade, back alley abortions are coming back. And you're going to see a lot of scary, threatening headlines. And the Democrats are going to be spinning all that up with the idea in mind of energizing their base before the midterms. So, I mean, that might be what they run on a year from now. They may try to keep that story going, through the midterms if they can. So I predict that you will see Democrats try to turn the corner on this terrible tragedy in Afghanistan, inflation, and all of the craziness that their policies are creating, and they're going to try to focus on this Texas abortion law.
Right. That's their tactic, is framing. They can't precisely tell you how to think, but they can show you things and make you think about a certain topic. Do not forget some of the things that have happened that has been a failure under this administration and other local and state leadership. Do not get distracted from those things. But Catherine, you're absolutely right. They are going to focus on this one issue and try to distract the electorate from everything else that's happened. And inflation is crazy. I don't know how much you paid at the pump a year ago precisely, or how much you paid at the grocery store. There's a lot of the country is not being ran well right now. So don't be distracted by the media focusing on this one issue. we got to keep it up. We got to keep the pressure up on these other issues as well.
Yeah, we just want to thank you for being a part of what we do here at Americans for Limited Government. We are so grateful for your voice, and so many of you have been engaged, sending letters and emails and contacting your lawmakers. And I know that what you're doing is working, it's effective. And I think if we just keep this up, hopefully we can get our country back on the right path and in a good place where, you know, we can enjoy our freedoms and our individual liberties again.
We can do it, and we will do it.
Thank you all for watching, and go check us out at getliberty.org. And there's a quick way there. You can check out our take action items and get involved and have your voice heard. Thanks, everyone.
Have a great weekend. Happy Labor Day.